I guess that's for me to sing. It's good to see you all this morning. I wanted to talk a little bit about the man of sin. 7 things that Paul says about the man of sin, also referred to as the Antichrist. That's going to bring in the chief and the worst time in human history that will ever be, that's coming. And he's very clear on some of the things he says. So I'm going to be going through 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. He addresses the Thessalonians, which is one, if not his earlier epistles. Well, it's one of his earliest epistles on this issue. And so he says, "Now I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of the Lord and our gathering together unto him." That's in verse 1. Those are very important factors to every Christian of every age. What is it going to be like to be gathered together with the Lord and his return? These events are very important. So he begins to lay out certain things that are very clear about that. He says now he doesn't want them to be soon troubled, shaken in mind, either by word or by spirit or by letter, as from us. When he says as from us, he means by the apostles, an official letter or something that indicates what their position is on this issue. And he says for that day, but I want to go into verse 3 and kind of tie it into verse 2 here. And he says, "Let no man deceive you by any means." So Paul is being very emphatic here, because obviously the people are concerned. They're probably concerned because people are going around teaching that the day of the Lord has already arrived. They're caught in it. They know, according to the Old Testament prophets, the day of the Lord is a day of darkness, not light. Especially when you look at Amos chapter 5, verses 18 through 20. Or Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 14 through 18. Or Isaiah chapter 13, verses 6 through 11. I mean, we can go all over. But they know that day is troublesome. And so they're dealing with that issue, and Paul is saying, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day." So this is clear that he's making clear, because this is where the problem is. "That day shall not come, except there come a falling away first." There's going to be a massive turning away from the truths of God's gospel. It doesn't mean churches will vanish, but it does mean in heart and in what is being taught and what is being presented, the people are going to be turning away. A great apostasy will occur. From that apostasy is where the man of sin comes. So we know it's going to happen in that linkage. The falling away will precede the coming of this man of sin. The son of perdition. Look at the names Paul gives to him. Son of perdition means son of damnation or son of hell. This man of perdition, this man of sin. He notes him as a singular individual. This is interesting. Jump to verse 7 for a moment. He says, "The mystery of iniquity does already work. Only he who now lets or withholds will let until he be taken out of the way." So Paul is admitting that iniquity is continuing to abound. And the New Testament writers seem to be very clear on this point, that the Antichrist spirit has been here all the time. But he's distinguishing the spirit with the culmination of this man of sin. The man of sin is yet future. The spirit of iniquity is present. The anti-Christian spirit is present. But the man of sin that will culminate it is future. And so he said, "Let no man deceive you by any means. That day will not come except they're falling away first. Then shall that man of sin be revealed." So this is what I want you to see. The first thing on the 7 agendas of what it's about is that there's going to be a falling away. The falling away is the sign that's going to lead to the revelation of the man of sin. That's number 1. Number 2 and number 3 are in verse 4. He opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So verses 4 is very, very important. He not only opposes everything about God, but he claims to be God. And he does it in the temple of God. Now, the temple is oftentimes referred to as we are the temple of the Lord. Our bodies are the temple of Christ. But Paul is not meaning it in that sense. He's meaning the temple that is in Jerusalem, the temple of the Jews. It's fascinating that the Antichrist will claim to be God, and he will hate everything about God, and yet try to follow God's prescription. In that sense that he proclaims in the temple that he is God. Another passage that affirms this is what Jesus said in Matthew 24, verses 15 through 21. He says, when you therefore shall see the abomination that makes desolate standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. And he refers you back to Daniel. Then let them which be in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not return to take his clothes or take anything back. He says, woe to them that are with child and have give suck to children who are not yet weaned in those days. For then shall come great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this day, no, nor ever shall be. Now this is fascinating, because when you look at the book of Daniel, the abomination that makes desolate is described very clearly, particularly when you get to chapter 8 of Daniel. The abomination that makes desolate is when Antiochus IV Epiphanes, back in the 3rd century BC, he marched into the temple and he offered a pig on the altar in defiance of the Jews, because he knew that the Jews hated that. It was against their religion. And then he put a bust in the temple of Zeus and put his own bust on it, calling himself Epiphanes, which means manifestation of God. And so he drove out the people of the temple. They could not worship there. It was defiled. So the abomination that makes desolate is a desecration of the temple. Now Jesus is clear, because when you're seeing what happens in Daniel, it's a desecration of the temple, the abomination. Later, Jesus also affirms that there's going to be the destruction of the temple in Matthew 24 earlier. Not one stone shall remain upon another that shall not be thrown down. So he's predicting the destruction which happened at the end of the Roman-Jewish War of AD 66 through 70. The temple was destroyed in AD 70. But the desecration of the temple first happened under Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the Syrian wicked king who hated the Jews. He did all types of evil to the Jews. He tried to force Jews to eat of that sacrifice of swine's flesh. He hated circumcision and commanded that the Jews could no longer circumcise their children according to law. He went all out on them. Horrible things he did. And he killed many. Many of the false Jews, they came in as spies. And he used the false Jews to spy out the true ones. And of course, there are always people willing to do anything if you pay them enough. And so all of this mayhem was going on at that time. But Jesus is referring to a future time. When Jesus makes this statement in Matthew 24, it had already been 200 years since Antiochus has made that abomination. And yet Jesus is talking about a future one. When you therefore shall see the abomination, which means something will happen in the future that mirrors what happened in the past. This is the man of sin Paul is describing here in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. He sits in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. So that's 2 and 3. He opposes God, number 1, and then he proclaims himself God, number 3. Now we get into verse 5. Verse 5 gives you number 4. Paul says, remember you not when I was with you, I told you these things, which means this is not the first time Paul introduced this issue. He had introduced it at least once before to the Thessalonians, which means his eschatology was set early in his ministry. He had told them this before. And then in verse 6, he says, now you know what restrains. This is the next one. There's a restrainer on him. Isn't that amazing? There's a restrainer on the revelation of the man of sin. Something is holding him back. And since he's going to have such awesome power, it certainly would have to be God's decision to do it. He's holding back the timing of when he comes. It's not that the mystery of iniquity doesn't already work. If God let him out of his cage, he would do it immediately. But he can't. Just like he wanted to have Jesus killed immediately. But he couldn't. His time was not yet come. So he has a timing that God is going to release the restraining influence he has on him. This is an amazing thing that he's dealing with here. And so as you go on further, it says in verse 8, the Lord, then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall destroy with the spirit of his mouth and with the brightness of his coming. He'll consume him with the spirit of his mouth. He'll destroy him with the brightness of his coming, which is exactly the order that John writes in Revelation. Because in Revelation chapter 19, starting in verse 11, John begins to record Jesus' return from heaven to earth, how he comes in on a white horse, and other white horses are coming with him. But then right after that, in the Battle of Armageddon, you'll see in verses 19 and 20 that he'll take the beast, that is the man of sin, and the false prophet, and will cast them alive into a lake burning with fire and brimstone. I want to call your attention that John is using that language. When you go back to Daniel 7, Daniel says, I beheld until I saw his body given to the burning flame, in verse 11. Interesting, 600 years apart, and they're using the same language. Daniel says, I beheld until I saw this one, and his body was given to the burning flame. John writes he was cast alive. Isn't it interesting, when we die, there's somewhere where our body goes, the grave, and there's other place where our spirit goes. Before, in the Old Testament, it was Sheol, the place of the grave, which had two compartments. Those that would be freed with Christ came, going to heaven, and those that were going to hell, who are reserved in Sheol, called hell. But now, when you look at the lake of fire, it seems to be where people are cast alive into. Fascinating. The Antichrist will be cast there alive. And he makes a point to say that. Revelation 19:20. Now, as we go on further, we get to the last one. In verse 9 of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, he comes with all deceivableness of unrighteousness. He comes with all power, signs, and lying wonders. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And then in verse 11, and God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who love not the truth, but had pleasure in righteousness. That's number 7. He's going to have all power at his disposal. Power to do miracles, power to deceive in every conceivable way will be in his hands to do. And God will allow it to happen for the sake of those who would not receive the love of the truth, but now would be condemned into loving the lie. This is an incredible witness of these things that Paul writes out. So number 1, that he's not going to come until there's a falling away first. Number 2, he's going to oppose everything that is about God. Number 3, he's going to claim that he himself is God. Number 4, Paul had told him before that this would happen. So this isn't the first time Paul spoke of this issue. And then as you go on further, number 5, there's a restrainer upon him until God removes that restraint. And then number 6, he's going to come out with everything he has, but he's eventually going to be destroyed by the Lord's coming. And then number 7, he's going to have all types of powers to deceive. Not natural powers, but supernatural powers as well. John confirms this. Now, to add a little bit to this, I'm just going to do a little bit of comparison between Daniel 7 and Revelation 13, written 600 years apart, but how they're both saying many of the same things, but there's some differences. But I'm going to get on some of the similarities. Number 1, This man of sin is going to have a voice speaking great things that's going to mesmerize people. Daniel says it in Daniel chapter 7, verses 8 and 11. He's very clear on that. John says it in Revelation 13, verses 5 and 6. There was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God and his tabernacle to blaspheme everything in heaven. Daniel says, I wondered at the great words which came out of his mouth. That's a similarity. You're talking about the same person. Number two, he's going to make war with the saints and prevail against them. Daniel says it in Daniel 7:21. He's going to kill and martyr the saints. John says it in Revelation 13, verse 7. There was power given to him over every kindred, tongue, people, and nation. And he's going to murder the saints. Another similarity, number three, is that they both give the same time limit of his rule. Daniel says in Daniel 7:25, he's going to rule for a time, times, and half a time, which is 3.5 years. Revelation chapter 13, verse 5, John says, and power was given to him to continue 42 months, which is what? 3.5 years. Another similarity. In Daniel chapter 7, he has worldwide access and control. It says that this fourth kingdom had power over all the earth. Daniel 7:23. And of course, in Revelation 13:7, John says that he had power over all kindreds, tongues, people, and nations. Incredible similarity. Now, some of the distinctions. Daniel tells us he came up because in that fourth kingdom out of which the man of sin arrives, there are 10 kings in place. He kills 3 of them off and becomes the 8th. And he calls him the little horn in Daniel 7, with a mouth speaking great things. John does not deal with his coming up in that way. The 3 kings. John deals with the fact that he suffers a fatal wound unto death and rises, and people begin to call him God. That's a distinction between the two. You put them together and you get a pretty good idea of what's happening. He rises up as a human at first, and he has fights and battles, but at the end of the day, something that seems to fake a resurrection causes people to begin to worship him beyond that. And the first part of the deception is they worship him as God. Revelation chapter 13, verse 3 and 4 tells us that. And it mentions it 2 more times in that chapter. They wondered after the beast, which was able to come back from that deadly wound, whose deadly wound was healed. An incredible thing. But what's going to precede it? A falling away. That's where you and I come in. God tells true Christians to hold the line because there's going to be a falling away. It's very clear. Every one of them mention it. Jude mentions it. Paul mentions it in Timothy. Everyone mentions that. In the latter days, some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. You go into 2 Timothy chapter 3. In the latter days, perilous times shall come. Men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God. And then he adds this, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. That to me is a signal he's talking about church people. But their wickedness will be just like anyone else. An apostate church that is given over. Jude talks about it, those times coming. How the apostles told you that there should be mockers in the last days and scoffers. And they're going to increase. Peter talks about it in 2 Peter chapter 2. As there were false prophets among the people, there should be false teachers among you. Jesus talks about it. And he talks about it from the standpoint that they will oftentimes come out from the midst of you. That is, they'll come from the church itself. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. That's what he says about it. Incredible. This scenery will accentuate to the end. This is why it's so important how you live now, because it'll affect not only you, but the generations that go beyond you. Because this is going to happen. Just like Jesus told Peter, this night before the cock crow, you're going to deny me 3 times. Peter said, no way. And it happened. This is going to happen too. You're not going to stop it from happening, but you can affect that you'll be on the right side. And this is what we're to do. This is why we're to do it nonstop. This is why Paul told Timothy, preach the word in season, out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and doctrine. For the time will come where men will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and shall turn their ears away from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. Now that time has already begun, but it's going to accentuate and accelerate. But you are not to go there. You are to make your impact. You're to make your mark on the world by not going in that direction. The man of sin is coming. He said, do you remember I told you this? I told you this. The falling away will be the start of it all. And once the Antichrist comes out, it's going to be rough. God is still moving. It's going to be rough waters. Amen. God bless you. Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time, this opportunity. We ask a blessing on the student body as well as the faculty and administration. And we just ask, Lord, you continue to empower us to empower others to be strong in your word and not simplistic with it, because we know that will play into all of this other stuff. And that the time is short. We don't know how short it is, but because we don't know, we're to be ready at all times. So, Lord, give us a spirit of readiness and anticipation for your return, but to be ready when you come, that we may be found working in the vineyard diligently. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.
Okay, I'm announcing the pickleball tournament. This is going to be next Wednesday, a week from yesterday, so it's the 30th. Make sure to sign up. It's at 10 a.m. and it's going to last until it ends, just bracket style. We have paddles provided, so if you decide to sign up, there's a physical sign-up sheet in the lobby out here, and then there's QR codes posted around, so definitely join us. It'll be fun.
Good morning, Randall University. I've got a couple announcements for you. But first off, last time the president was playing, and he was killing everyone. I actually lost to him in the thing. It was horrible. I cried. The state games will be May 3rd, so make sure to sign up for that. Also, the women's Bible study will be joining this upcoming Monday at 6:30. Make sure to RSVP so she knows how much food to make or bring. There will be Business Pros meetings after chapel next Tuesday and Thursday. The History Club will be meeting on Wednesday on the 30th of the 4th month at 3 p.m. Also, Encounter Camp workers are needed for week 2, which is the 22nd through the 27th, and Kids Camp, which is the 13th through the 17th of the 7th month. The first one's the 6th month. Scan the QR code or see Miss Lucy Robinson if you're interested in this. The silent book auction starts tomorrow. Those are always fun, and it's always annoying to lose them. And it ends next Thursday at 9 p.m. If you didn't know, the blood drive's today. It's right there. If you didn't know that, you should check. You shouldn't give blood. All right, so in the Dosa Digest, if you found Easter eggs and submitted your answer to it, your name was put into this bucket of dreams. And so we're going to pick one. And this one is not the winner, but we're going to see who would have won if I would have actually chosen that one. Kaylin Harvey actually won. Yeah, I have a gift card. Ooh, Tara Shaw would have won. That's unfortunate. That is mighty unfortunate. The beacon should be on right now, and we have a very, very special video for you that we'll be playing here shortly.
My name is Grace. I'm Abby Grady. We got nominated by Kaylin Harvey to do the USC Ice Bucket Challenge.
We nominate Luke Valentine, Dr. Brohammer, Aiden Taylor.
And Dr. Sykes, Gavin Grima, and Mr. Brooks.
You have 24 hours to complete this challenge.
Grace, did you even get wet?
All right, beloved of God,